Late blooming boomer here. Hey, what's all the hullabaloo over what Twitter did with regards to censoring information about Hunter's laptop just before the election of Joe Biden in 2020? Matt Taibbi made a thread called the Twitter Files. So let's take a look. He starts by saying Twitter more than lived up to its mission statement, giving people the power to create and share ideas and information instantly without barriers. So far, so good. As time went on, the company began to put up barriers to combat spam and financial fraudsters, and later to consider information that important people didn't like. Important people like the Biden team. Now, I looked up these tweets to review them myself, but none of them existed, and only 2 of the 4 accounts were still up. I followed the 2 that were still up, and then the DNC came up with 2 more. One was still suspended, and I ended up following the one that was still active. I couldn't tell what the original tweet said, but I think if the DNC doesn't want us to see, we should see it. Taibbi also says that both parties had access to these censoring tools, but the Democrats had more contacts. So it just proves it's not what you know, it's who you know. The real crime was Twitter censoring the New York Post story published on October 14th, 2020, regarding the Hunter Biden's secret emails. Meanwhile, I remember the Democrats were calling for everybody to vote as soon as possible. Remember that? Here's a little clip of Kamala in full pandemic gear on October 24th, 2020, urging people to get out there and vote. Hurry up and vote. She said Joe and her had a plan. Remember, this story was censored by the DNC, the DOJ, and Twitter 3 weeks before the election.
Biden and I are proud American patriots. And the reality is that the values that we have, I think, are shared by the majority of the American people. When you look at what we all want in terms of knowing people have access to health care, especially in a pandemic where we just reached the highest numbers ever with 80,000, he's trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. We're trying to expand it. Our values about saying we need to lift up working people. Meanwhile, Donald Trump measures the success of the economy based on how rich people are doing and how the stock market is doing. Ohio is going to help determine the outcome of this election. There's no question. But also, you look at the challenges that Ohioans are facing. Again, when we look at the highest number, we've had the highest number in Ohio of hospitalizations since the beginning of the pandemic. Ohio has been very hard hit. Joe Biden and I have a plan. That's about what we need to do around testing, contact tracing, getting the vaccine, when God willing we have one, to people and getting it to them where they need it and for free. Ohioans know what it means when we're looking at how this economy has been devastated because of the failure of this administration. Joe and I have a plan for dealing with that. So I'm here to talk to the voters in Ohio, but also to listen to them. And there's no question that the path to victory runs through Ohio.
The story goes on to say they found a 12-minute video of Hunter smoking crack and having sex, and the FBI seized the laptop in December 2019. This was before the insurrection on January 6th. Or said another way, this was during the insurrection. Kayleigh McEnany, White House spokeswoman, was locked out of her account for tweeting about the story. I wonder what was so bad about the story. It could have been the part about an email dated May 20th, 2014 from Vadim Pizarski to Hunter and his partner, Devon Archer. Meanwhile, on October 14th, 2020, the Trump team asked Twitter executives about Kayleigh's account being locked for simply citing the story, and also questioned the censoring of news articles. Early in the morning the next day, Carolyn Strom at Twitter asked the team to look into it. She was told the user was bounced by site integrity for violating Twitter's hacked materials policy and copied them into the email chain. Conversations took place about what else should be censored, which is why Twitter doesn't need to reinvent what the First Amendment means. It means if it's not involved in illegal activities or inciting violence, then it's free speech. And then in pops Jim Baker, saying we simply need more information. On the 14th of October, 2020, Democrat Congressman Ro Khanna dips his toe in and asks Gotti, who's Twitter's chief lawyer for 11 years, what's up. The fact that this congressman can just strike up a conversation with Twitter's chief lawyer is a little curious, don't you think? So cozy. Hey, happy to chat if you're up for it. It's about the First Amendment. Gotti responds that Twitter put out a clarification tweet on their policy. You know what? Fuck her policy. This is the suppression of free speech weeks before a presidential election. Ro Khanna says this seems like a violation of the First Amendment principles. No shit, Ro. He goes on to say he's convinced Biden didn't do anything wrong and to keep this communication between just us and Jack. No need to get anybody else involved. And then he's just offering his 2 cents. No, he's a congressman, not an employee of Twitter. Within a day, head of public policy Lauren Culbertson receives a report from Carl Szabo of the research firm NetChoice saying the Democrats were in agreement. Social media needs to moderate more because they're corrupting democracy and making all truth relative. When pushed on how the government might insist on that, consistent with the First Amendment, they demurred, the First Amendment isn't absolute. The fuck it isn't. If you believe in free speech, then share this video because we all need to wake up. The government is supposed to work for us, and it's high time we insisted on it. See you later.